Hey there everyone, welcome back once again to the complete story of Pokemon Adventures. In the previous 2 episodes, we covered the entire first generation, meaning now we've only got 8 more generations to go. Yeah, still a pretty long way. Either way, today we'll be knocking out Generation 2 by covering the Gold, Silver and Crystal arc of Pokemon Adventures. And if you thought the other 2 arcs were good, well this time you're in for a major treat. Cause if you ask me, this is easily one of the best arcs. So let's get straight into things. But before that, if you haven't watched the other 2 parts, I suggest you do so before this one.
So now just, okay, swallow your fears and battle them head on. Okay, filling with pride I'll fight until they're gone. Okay, I may not know what lies ahead, but these hot emotions surely they can spread. I will battle fierce opponents head to head. Okay!
Our story begins in the Johto region's New Bark Town, where we see a lady cooking food with an Aipom. She tells the Pokemon to go wake up its trainer, who's a young boy sleeping surrounded by Pokemon. The boy's pretty slow at getting up, but his Pokemon all help him out. And after eating some food, the boy and his Pokemon all head out. Also in New Bark Town is the Professor Elm, a Pokemon researcher who's currently researching work done by Professor Oak. He also mentions how a year has passed since the Yellow arc. By his side are 3 Pokeballs containing the Johto starters. Now at the end of the day, the boy has returned home and is playing billiards while listening to the radio, when suddenly his radio begins to stop working. The boy then notices someone sneaking in his yard, so he goes outside to confront the person. But this person just turns out to be a youngster named Joey, who claims he hasn't done anything wrong. Instead, the issue is that his bag and the boy's antenna have been stolen by a Murkrow, who's currently nesting in a tree. The boy then grabs his billiard stick and shoots a Pokeball containing an Aipom into the sky. Aipom jumps out of his Pokeball once atop the trees and ties a rope around the items before throwing them off the tree. Turns out this rope was connected to the boy, lifting him up to the tree and allowing him to catch the Murkrow. And with some help from Aipom, he manages to get down safely. The boy then introduces himself to Joey, and we learn his name is Gold. Joey then thinks to himself it would have been bad if he lost the bag, as he was meant to deliver it to Professor Elm. Since it's late, Joey stays at Gold's house, and the next day the 2 head out together. As Gold learned from Joey that he has connections to Professor Oak, who's actually the person who tasked him to deliver the bag to Professor Elm. This interests Gold, but not for the reason you may think, because he only cares about Professor Oak because he works with DJ Mary in the radio station. So Gold decides to take the opportunity and deliver the bag with Joey, hoping it can lead to him meeting DJ Mary. As the 2 walk through New Bark Town, they spot a man trying to swindle people in a prize game. So Gold steps up to the plate and with his keen eye exposes the man's scam. However, whilst he was doing this, he didn't use his keen eye on his bag, allowing his Pokemon to get stolen. Eventually, Gold does notice this, but it's already too late, and Joey realizes that the thief must have been trying to steal his bag but mistook it for Gold's. As he further explains that inside his bag wasn't only Pokemon but also valuable information from Professor Oak. Because the thieves will probably realize their mistakes soon enough, the 2 of them head to Professor Elm's lab as soon as possible. At said lab, the professor hears his door open and goes to greet Joey, only to find no one outside, so he heads back in. However, looming over him is this mysterious boy, who we actually know the identity of, being Silver, the boy who was helping Green in the Yellow arc. Taking inspiration from Green, Silver sneakily steals Totodil's Pokeball when Professor Elm isn't looking, then goes back into hiding. Elm turns around and starts to panic as he notices Totodile is now missing. At the same time as this, Gold and Joey have arrived at the lab, and Gold comes up with a plan. Instead of entering through the front door like a regular person, they'll try to catch the thief by going through the 2nd floor, as chances are that's what a thief would try to do. And it turns out just like he planned, as Gold runs into Silver, who's trying to escape from the 2nd floor. Silver acts quick though and jumps away, and Professor Elm thinks that Gold stole his Totodile. Gold of course denies the accusations, but in the confusion, Silver takes the chance to knock Professor Elm out with Icy Wind. Joey hears what's going on, but slips on the frozen floor when he enters, knocking him out as well. Gold prepares for battle, managing to outsmart Silver, and demands that he returns his bag. Surprisingly though, Silver doesn't know what he's talking about. Gold knows that Silver's pretty skilled, so he grabs a Pokeball from Elm's table in order to fight against Silver. The Pokemon being Cyndaquil, who's currently angry at Silver for taking his friend. Gold sympathizes with the Pokemon, and the 2 agree to work together to battle. Nearby the lab lurks Team Rocket, who are actually the ones who stole Gold's bag. They look through it, hoping to see their spoils, but they realize that they stole the wrong bag. So they throw away Gold's bag, and one of the Pokeballs holding Poliwag ends up rolling out of the bag and into the sea. Meanwhile, Gold and Silver are continuing their fight, and Silver manages to escape from the window. Gold stops him in his tracks though with Cyndaquil's fire, burning Silver's hand. He then traps him in a ring of fire and tries to interrogate Silver, noticing him trying to use a device behind his back. Suddenly though, Gold is attacked by an electric attack, shocking even Silver. Team Rocket then reveal themselves to be the one under this attack, explaining to Silver that they made a mistake grabbing the wrong bag. But whilst they're here, they may as well steal some more stuff from Professor Elm's lab, specifically the starter Pokemon that he's been researching. But Silver replies saying he's already taken Totodile and the boy has already taken Cyndaquil. So Team Rocket go for the attack, but Silver dispatches them with ease, forcing them to run away. A while later, Gold wakes up, only to be told he's gonna get arrested by the police. Fortunately though, Joey's around and has him covered, explaining to Gold that Professor Elm had to be hospitalized after injuring his hip. The police ask Gold about Silver and what did he look like, since he was the only one who saw his face, and Gold agrees to cooperate. So whilst everyone leaves, Gold picks up a glove that Silver threw away. Later on, the group arrive at Cherry Grove City. Gold is finishing off his witness statement about Silver, but when it comes to the appearance of Silver's face, he actually chooses to lie about it. Him and Joey then leave the police station and prepare to camp outside, and Gold explains to Joey that he lied to the police so that he can deal with the Silver issue by himself. Out of nowhere though, the two are approached by another familiar face, being Professor Oak. Although, unlike the other two protagonists, Gold isn't looking for any assistance. Instead, Professor Oak is, asking Gold if Silver was carrying a Pokedex, showcasing what it is. And Gold does indeed recognize it. Professor Oak explains that only 3 exist, but one of them was stolen recently, and chances are, Silver's the guy who did the crime again. Gold finds the Pokedex interesting and asks to have it for himself, but unsurprisingly, Professor Oak rejects his request, as he only has 2 left and he uses them for his research. Gold continues to pester the professor, but no matter what he tries, Oak just says no. Eventually, he even lashes out at Gold, saying that the Pokedex are only given to trainers that he trusts and have the character and skills to help others. Taking this in the worst way possible, Gold then tries to show off his skills by battling the professor, but embarrassingly for Gold, this backfires and Oak actually manages to defeat him. Gold then complains that no one could use a Pokedex better than he could, and this confirms for Oak that Gold isn't suitable for a Pokedex. Recognizing the boy is too headstrong, to the point that he doesn't even consider people or issues around him. Gold then storms off, saying that he doesn't need a Pokedex, in fact he'll do better without one. And the next day, Gold is training his team hard, and even Joey is starting to get worried for them. The sky then begins to start chucking it down with rain, and elsewhere Professor Oak is concerned about the storm, coming across Joey's tent and hearing a voice calling for help. Checking over the cliff, Oak finds Joey and Aipom clinging on for dear life, and Joey explains to Oak that Gold jumped into the river in order to save his Rattata. Speaking of, Gold's managed to save the Pokemon, but he and Cyndaquil are still in danger. So he returns his Pokemon into its Pokeball, using his Q to carefully shoot the Pokeball onto the shore. Gold gets pushed by the current though and is about to fall over a waterfall, but at the last second, he's saved by Oak's Leddyba. Oak lectures Gold on if he wasn't there, he would have died. But Joey bails Gold out once again, saying that if it wasn't for Gold, his Rattata would have died. Gold however chooses to man up and accept the fall for himself, confessing he just wanted to become stronger in order to receive a Pokedex. Oak can see Gold's determination and asks him the age-old question, what are Pokemon to him? Bringing up the answers of the previous protagonists, wondering if Gold also sees Pokemon the same. But Gold doesn't. Instead, for Pokemon such as Aipom, he sees it as his family. But for a Pokemon like Cyndaquil, it's his partner, a partnership united by the same goal. And Oak accepts this answer, giving Gold the Pokedex. Now it's time for the story to really start, and Gold splits ways with Joey, saying he's gonna make sure he gets Totodile and his backpack back. Professor Oak then mentions that he actually found a backpack by the river, which just so happens to be Gold's. Gold asks Joey if he can return his bag back home, and Joey agrees. He then calls his mom and tells him the situation, preparing his gear to head out. Noticing on Silver's glove is his name, allowing him to learn the thief's name. Back at New Barktown, Elm is speaking to his assistant, and although all that bad stuff happened, they're at least happy that their Pokemon egg didn't get stolen. Gold then calls in on the computer, introducing himself to the professor and explaining his situation. Meanwhile, Joey returns Gold's Pokemon to his mom, but she notices that Poliwag's Pokeball is missing. So Joey calls Gold and informs him of this, meaning Gold's gonna have to make a quick detour and search the river for his friend. But things are never that simple, and all he finds are Chinchou, so he's gonna have to search again later. Whilst he's doing this, Silver's roaming around the city and finds his wanted poster. Gold continues his journey and arrives in Violet City, where another thief is stealing people's stuff whilst traveling with a herd of Donphan. The thief's antics end up getting dust all over Gold's food, so he decides to step in and intervene, which pretty much summarizes what kind of hero he is, only helping others if it helps himself. But in this case it pays off, as he actually gets a reward from one of the victims. This man is the guy who runs the Pokemon Academy in Violet City, and right now he has to deliver something to Professor Elm's assistant, reminding Gold that he has to get serious as he's on a mission. He shows the thief he caught a photo of Silver, asking if he's seen him before, but the thief unfortunately hasn't. A girl who's passing by though has seen him, directing Gold to the Sprout Tower. Inside said tower, Silver is speaking to someone on his Pokegear about evolving his Pokemon, informing him that his Pokemon's evolution relies entirely on his own skills. Gold also arrives at the tower, and instead of entering the tower like a regular person, he once again chooses to enter through the window. Unlike last time though, this time it ends up backfiring, as he ends up running into the Sages, who force him to get involved with their training regime. But with a fire type on his team, Gold can easily take the victory, and gets them to tell him where Silver is, who coincidentally walks right by. Gold tries to chase Silver, but he has Totodile break the stairs. Gold gets saved by Apon's tail though, and gets back on his feet, ready for round 2 with his rival. The two stand out as starter Pokemon, but because of a type matchup, Cyndaquil can't keep up. Gold is aware of this though, but he wants to take into account Cyndaquil's feelings, so he switches gears, having the Pokemon fill the room with Smokescreen, blinding Silver and allowing him to steal back Totodile. However, the Pokemon bites his hand, not wanting to return to Elm, instead wanting to stay with Silver. Silver explains that by staying with him, Totodile realizes it can bring out its true power. But this confrontation's gonna have to wait, as spikes erupt from the wall and a metal ball falls from the ceiling, forcing Gold and Silver to work together in catching the ball. If you're wondering why there's such traps in the Sprout Tower, well, it's actually training mechanisms, and they started up because of Cyndaquil's smoke. But because Silver broke the stairs, the two now have no way out. But this is a Pokemon manga, and the Pokemon can help out, with Cyndaquil heating up the ball with its flames, and Totodile using Ice Punch to smash the ball into pieces. Gold praises his Pokemon, reminding himself that these guys were owned by a professor. He goes to thank Totodile as well, but it and his trainer have already left the tower. Outside, Totodile begins to shake, and it evolves into a Croconaw, just like Silver had planned. Now we head for Goldenrod City, where we see a certain somebody at Johto's Pokemon Society, explaining that they should be more careful about picking gym leaders, as 3 years ago, Serge and Sabrina, currently gym leaders of Vermilion and Saffron City, were actually part of Team Rocket, and Fuchsia City and Viridian City's gym leaders are still missing, leaving those two gyms with no leaders. He then gets interrupted, as someone says that these gym leaders were only suspected of working with Team Rocket, and there's still no proof that this was the case. But this hardly matters now, as Team Rocket's gone and dissolved. So instead of worrying about that issue, the man says that he should be focusing on fixing the Pokemon storage system, with us seeing that Bill was the guy talking before. Back with our main character, Gold is beginning to worry, as he's noticed that him and Cyndaquil don't click in the same way that Silver and Totodile do, asking the Pokemon if he wants to continue their journey or head back. Things are pretty clear that Totodile wants to be with Silver, but Gold won't be stopping his journey as he still has to catch Silver. But for Cyndaquil's case, he doesn't want the Pokemon to fight if it doesn't want to. For now though, they'll take a rest, which is quickly interrupted by a large gust of wind, and a bunch of Sunkern rush by, followed by a Pidgeot and Noctowl returning to their trainer. This trainer happens to be Falkner, in other words the policeman that interrogated Gold. Falkner explains that right now he's off duty, and is instead training for his own personal goal of becoming the Violet City gym leader, taking the place of his father. Hearing Falkner's goal, Gold gets thinking that maybe Silver's also heading for a bigger goal, and stealing Totodile may just be a necessity in achieving that goal. But like usual, his thinking time gets interrupted again, this time with more wind, caused by a Skarmory. The Sunkern run by again, and Falkner notes that they must be scared of the Pokemon. And as a flying type trainer himself, he's been tracking Skarmory for a while, and he wants to add it to his team, sending his Pokemon to do battle against it. Although they're putting up a good fight, it can't get past this metal shell, so Gold uses his quick thinking and helps out, catching a Sunkern and having it hold Expo's Pokeball whilst it jumps, allowing the Fire-type Pokemon to jump out of his Pokeball in the sky and deal a decisive blow against the Skarmory, allowing Falkner to finally make the catch. Falkner thanks his team and Gold for their help, and Gold asks Cyndaquil if he wants to give it another shot at bringing back Totodile, and the Pokemon agrees. Falkner then offers Gold to become his training partner, noting that he has a great instinct for battle that he can hone into a skill. But Gold unfortunately has to decline, as he still has a couple jobs to finish, so the two split ways. As Gold leaves, Bill walks by him, noticing the Pokedex. but he doesn't have time to chat since he has to give Faulkner the good news that he can take part in the gym leader qualifying exam. At Violet City's Pokemon Center, Professor Elm's assistant hasn't been able to find Gold, which is a shame as they wanted to give him the Pokemon Egg. Elm had recently heard a theory that Pokemon eggs hatch after being near high energy Pokemon, so having Gold with the Pokemon would be perfect. Speaking of, the boys just arrived at the ruins of Alph, where he spots a girl, using his natural charms to try hit on her. But this girl turns out to be a guy, and not just any guy, but Bugsy of Azalea Town. Bugsy explains that he's looking for his missing friends who disappeared after searching the ruins, and Gold explains he's doing the same in trying to find his Poliwag. Aipom then begins to hear something from inside the ruins, so Gold breaks down the wall and the two enter to search the ruins. Once inside, Bugsy finds code written out by Unknown, explaining to Gold that there have been rumors of symbol Pokemon and he hopes to decipher them one day. But that one day is gonna have to wait as Team Rocket are here. Gold buys them some time with Sunkern's Flash and the Unknown begin to move, getting angry at being woken up from their sleep. So Gold and Bugsy have to make a run for things. Eventually, they realize their path is being blocked by Spinarak's webs, being the work of Team Rocket, who tried to get the Unknown to chase Gold and Bugsy, but with the use of Smokescreen, they confuse both sides and the Unknown end up taking down Team Rocket before returning back to sleep. And after a while, Gold and Bugsy manage to find Bugsy's friends, so now Gold can get back to his mission once again. And Bugsy gives Gold a tip based on a rumor of Pokemon going missing. Although things on the surface are all good, down below, Team Rocket have managed to recuperate and are currently trying to uncover the secret behind the ruins. But unlike the Giovanni you would expect, this time Team Rocket's boss is someone else. Now, Gold makes his way to the fishing hole, where he meets a fisherman who explains the rumor of the Pokemon getting stolen, with a super fast thief coming to take a Pokeball out of a trainer's hands, then disappearing. And right on cue, this happens to the fisherman, but Gold acts quickly, using his billiard cue to fling the Pokeball at the thief, which actually turns out to be a Grand Ball. The Pokemon actually thanks Gold, as it turns out its jaw was stuck, so it was stealing Pokemon to try get trainers' attentions. The Grand Ball then returns all the Pokemon it managed to steal, and among them is Polibo, Gold's Poliwag, allowing Gold to reunite with his Pokemon. The fisherman wants to exchange contacts with Gold, but because he's in a hurry, Gold has to go. However, this would be a missed opportunity, as the fisherman thinks to himself that Gold uses Pokeballs just like our previous protagonist, Yellow, and he thinks he should get in contact with her about it. With Polibo back on his team, Gold calls Joey and lets him know the situation. But since the transfer system's down, he's gonna have to bring Polibo with him. Professor Elm's assistant then appears, finally managing to find Gold, giving him the Pokemon Egg, and explaining how he wants Gold to hatch it. Now let's check in on Gold's rival, Silver, who's reached Azalea Town. Silver commissions Kurt to make him a special Pokeball, in this case a Heavy Ball. Later on, Gold also approaches the town, but he's run out of supplies and food. Luckily for him though, a little girl gives him some rice balls, telling him that her grandpa makes Pokeballs out of apricots. One of these Pokeballs being a friend ball, which she wanted her grandpa to make so she could catch a Pokemon with. But he said no, as his Pokeballs are only for trainers who know how to use them. Gold can't help but diss Kurt's work, causing the old man to appear out of nowhere and shout at him. Kurt says a talentless trainer like Gold would be a waste of time on his Pokeballs, which successfully taunts Gold into challenging Kurt, saying by the end of the day, he'll master one of his Pokeballs, and if he doesn't, then he'll work as Kurt's assistant for the rest of his life. And so, Kurt makes Gold a friend ball, and Gold and the little girl head out to find a Pokemon. In return of her kindness, Gold offers the girl to catch the Pokemon she wanted. The only thing is, the Pokemon that the girl wanted lives atop the mountain her granddad always told her to stay away from. But with Gold by her side, there's nothing to fear. The Pokeball the girl wants is a Teddiursa, and one just so happens to walk by. But also occupying the area is an Ursaring, who attacks Gold. Out of nowhere though, Silver steps in, revealing the Pokemon he wanted to use the Heavy Ball on was this Ursaring. And like the brat he is, Gold decides to swap targets from Teddiursa to Ursaring. Both Gold and Silver attack the Pokemon in competition with who can get it first, until the Pokemon gets angry enough to attack the girl. Gold swoops in for the save, but Teddiursa is also on the attack, catching Gold off guard and causing him to twist his ankle. Ursaring's about to attack for the final blow, but he's saved by Silver's Sneasel. Since things are getting out of hand, Gold tries to catch the Pokemon with a friend ball, but the Pokeball just bounces off. Silver explains there's a trick to using Kurt's Pokeballs, and he's about to demonstrate, but Aipom gets flung at him, causing him to drop the Pokeball. The group end up getting pushed back to a cliff, and the girl apologizes to Gold for asking him to complete this task, but Gold reassures her that now isn't the time to give up, swallowing his pride and asking Silver for some assistance, since all they have on hand is the friend ball. So Silver explains that when using these Pokeballs, you have to hit a Pokemon at its energy point. In the case of these two Pokemon, for Ursaring it's its center circle, and for Teddiursa it's its crescent. And Gold decides to lock in, preparing a technical shot with his Billiard cue, shooting the friend ball at the rocks, which ricochets into the heavy ball and allows the two trainers to get their Pokeballs back. And with a well-placed throw, both trainers catch their Pokemon. Gold teases Silver by saying now they're even, but he just gives him a warning not to get in his way, quickly taking his leave. Gold and the girl head back down the mountain, and Silver goes to the Slowpoke well after hearing about rumors of Team Rocket. Kurt lectures his granddaughter on her actions, but most importantly, he's glad to see her safe, saying now she has to take good care of her new Pokemon. At the well, Gold asks Kurt if he captured all of Team Rocket, but he explains when he got there they were already like this. Also at the scene is Bugsy, who's just as surprised to see what's going on. On the well lies claw marks, which Gold notices, realizing Silver must have been there. But not only that, he must have also known Team Rocket were going there, which is why he caught an Ursaring, making Gold suddenly not want to catch Silver anymore, but instead find out just who he really is. After Azalea Town is Ilex Forest, where a woodcutter and his Farfetch'd are cutting trees, but suddenly the area gets surrounded by mist, and the trainer gets separated from his Pokemon. The trainer then hears a voice telling him to leave the forest, but it's too late for the guy. Gold also arrives at the forest, seeing it covered in mist, but he's not here to mess around, instead choosing just to go straight through the forest, but the map on his Pokegear gives out. Gold then trips over the injured Farfetch'd, and his team somehow manage to trip over his trainer. Since they're this injured, Gold can't just leave them stranded, picking them up and trying to escape. He then feels a cold shiver go by, and the trainer's body starts to get really heavy, to the point that he can't even ignore it, throwing the duo away, revealing everyone's favorite ghost type to be controlling them, Ghastly. Ghastly forces the trainer and his Pokemon to attack Gold, so Gold tries to run away, hiding behind the Ilex Shrine. Poliwag however gets left behind, so Gold has to rush in and save it, but in doing so, he gets caught by a new group of foes. And although it's a 4v4, Gold's never done a group battle before and can't keep up with his commands, allowing his whole team to get blitzed. A mysterious man in a mask then appears, telling Gold to stay away from the forest. From his looks, Gold can tell this guy is no joke, so instead of trying to fight, he's gonna have to ditch the other guy and run away by himself. Or at least that's what he would say if he was a loser. Gold has his Pokemon attack the masked man directly, but he still can't break through the defensive line. The man praises Gold for his bravery, giving him a present, which ends up being a present bomb, blowing up in his face. The masked man then takes down all of Gold's team, apart from his Cyndaquil, who once again saves the day with Smokescreen. Gold managed to get away, but he wasn't able to grab the other trainer, so the masked man can tell that he's still around, having his Ariados create a bunch of webs. Gold is hiding up in the trees, trying to figure out a plan, but down below, Delibird and Houndour are using Headbutt to shake the trees, and if Gold does fall, he'll land in Ariados' webs. He begins to start to slip, but suddenly the Ilex Forest Shrine begins to shine, which turns out to be what the masked man was waiting for. So Gold takes his distraction as a chance to attack, taking off his jumper and using it as a body double, giving him the perfect chance for an opening. Unfortunately though, the masked man is in a pushover, with his Ariados forming a web from its butt, trapping Gold. During this, the shine in the shrine disappears, and the masked man prepares to leave. Gold asks the guy what's his deal, but the masked man only taunts him, saying that he doesn't mind battling against kids, but Gold doesn't even measure up to the kid he fought before with the Croconaw, of course referring to Silver. With the masked man now gone, Gold gets out of the webs and his team is feeling understandably depressed. But Gold tells them next time they'll get their revenge, picking up the trainer and his Farfetch'd and leaving the forest. At the Pokemon Center, Gold explains to Professor Elm what happened, and mentions that when Aipom attacked the guy, it left some gold powder on its tail. So Gold sent it over so Professor Elm could analyze it, hoping they can get a clue on discovering who really is the masked man. We now head to Silver, who is speaking to someone on his Pokegear. The person on the other side tells him about Gold's encounter with the masked man, and how he seemed to be after the light in the shrine, so they want Silver to keep tracking the masked man. Back over at Violet City, Falkner has successfully become the new gym leader. The Pokemon Association, Bill included, are arguing about how Bill needs to fix the storage system. Falkner offers to help out, but Bill tells him not to worry. Instead, he should just focus on being a good gym leader. On the topic of gym leaders, his friend is also going to be taking the gym leader exam as well. Now we head to Goldenrod City, as that's where Gold is now. Although he wants to go to the game corners, he's got no money, so instead he'll just be heading to bed. As he sleeps, he gets pranked by a Smeargle, but the Pokemon wasn't very sneaky as Gold wakes up and chases the Pokemon into the city. The Smeargle paints over Gold's eyes and manages to escape, and some people from the radio station appear, complimenting Gold and his team for their teamwork, asking if he wants to appear in the next episode. And like the opportunity is, Gold agrees to, as he'll be getting some money as well as the chance to meet DJ Mary. Inside the station, Gold runs into the Smiggle again. He barges into the room where the Pokemon is, and he spots DJ Mary and her guest, Whitney. Only issue is, these guys are live broadcasting right now. At New Barktown, Joey coincidentally wants to listen to the radio, where they hear Gold getting into an argument with Whitney. The radio presenter gets angry at the two, and people call over the radio asking for the two trainers to battle it out. So the next day, we're now getting the Pokemon battle race of Whitney vs Gold. The reason why this is a race is because the bike shop are actually sponsoring the radio station. So the two trainers are going to have to use bikes. But Gold's too cool for bikes, so he takes it apart and combines it with his skateboard, creating a scooter. The race begins and Whitney's on the advantage since she started with rollout. But Gold isn't giving up without a fight. The two continue to race, but little do they know, a large suspicious tree is blocking their path. And eventually they both reach this tree, and Whitney tries to take it down with Miltank. But the Pokemon can't even make it budge. So Gold decides to give things a shot, using his whole team. But the only Pokemon that can do damage is Polibo. Suddenly, a Rhydon appears, and Whitney tries to fight against the Pokemon, but she ends up getting kidnapped. The radio team call the race off, and zoom off to save Whitney, leaving Gold with this weird looking tree. He has Polibo attack the tree and it shrinks down into a Sudowoodo, and Gold pieces things together, realizing the Pokemon was hiding from Rhydon. He then tells the Pokemon that it shouldn't be scared and instead fight off the Pokemon, as after all, its defense was strong enough to brush off all of their attacks. So Gold decides to give the Pokemon a lesson in how to fight, and the group catch up with the Rhydon. Using his specialty, Gold shoots Sudowoodo's Pokeball in order to catch the Rhydon by surprise, allowing Sudowoodo to get the job done. And although the race got called off, Gold successfully managed to save Whitney, so he might as well be the winner. As his reward, he gets the money as planned, and while he's at it, gets DJ Mary to write him a ton of autographs. Whitney says the next time they meet, they'll have a real battle. But for now, Gold's gonna waste his hard-earned money in the game corner. But not before having a new team member join him, in Sudowoodo. After wasting his time at the game corner, Gold speaks to Professor Elm about the egg, but so far nothing's changed with it. Later on, Gold and his team prepare for more camping, but as he sleeps, the egg gets stolen by a Gligar. Fortunately though, Aipom wakes up and gets the gang in order to fight. Gold, however, is fast asleep, so the Pokemon will have to fight without him. They all work together, but their fighting causes the egg to crack open, and Gold's Pokedex reports that it's about to hatch. The Gligar still wants to eat the egg though, but it hatches into a Togepi. The Togepi immediately gets into a fighting stance and with a double-edged metronome combo, successfully defeats the Pokemon. Gold wakes up and the next day reports his findings to Professor Elm. With such a leap in scientific history, Elm wants to see what the egg hatched into. But to his dismay, the newborn Togepi is busy playing billiards, cards and even dices. Because of his bad influence, Elm has Gold take the Pokemon to the daycare, as that's where the egg was originally found. As he travels, he runs into the daycare lady, whose baby Pokemon are all escaping her, so she has Gold lend a hand. Eventually, he catches all the Pokemon, and she brings him to the daycare, where they explain Pokemon eggs to him. Gold's about to leave, but the daycare lady offers Gold some training, which surprisingly he accepts, as now he wants to really beat Silver. The man of the daycare couple then calls his granddaughter, being Jasmine of Olivine City, and arranges a meeting with her. Inside the daycare, Gold comes across a library, and inside a photo album, showcasing the previous Pokemon League winners. And in one of these photos includes our original boy, Red, standing proud with his league winning team, most notably Poliwrath, which gets both Polibo and Gold excited at the thought of it evolving. Gold eventually reaches the training room, where he has to fight against powerful Pokemon, but the catch is he can't use any of his tricks and tools. The training's hard, but Gold and his team manage to progress through it. After some time, Jasmine arrives at Ecruteak City, but when she does arrive, the city begins to shake as an earthquake occurs. Back over at the daycare though, Gold has realized a new strategy for his team, being Sunbow's Sunny Day helping X-Bow's Firepower. However, he can't help but be worried for his team, as they've been training really hard. The daycare lady assures him though, this is what they need to do in order to get stronger, and right on cue, X-Bow evolves into Quilava, reigniting Gold and his team's passion for the training. Over the radio, they hear about the earthquake at Ecruteak City, and quickly realize Jasmine must have passed through that city, so in order to rescue their dear granddaughter, our hero Gold is being sent to Ecruteak City. Just before he leaves though, the daycare lady gives Gold a King's Rock. On the other side of our protagonist's coin is Silver, who surprise surprise is also heading to Ecruteak City. Inside the city's tower, Jasmine is struggling to move as her leg is trapped under some debris. She sends out its Ampharos in order for it to let people know that she's there, which works like a charm as outside the tower, Gold sees the light and makes his way there. But as he does, he feels some aftershocks from the earthquakes as the tower begins to collapse. Once he reaches the top of the tower, he runs into Silver, who's also already made it to Jasmine. He gives Jasmine to Gold for him to deal with, and whilst there, Gold notices the statue of the legendary Pokemon Ho-Oh. The group begin to leave the tower, but they don't have much time as the exit is about to get closed off. So Ursaring holds up the building in order for Jasmine and Ampharos to at least get out. This however means Gold is stuck here with his best buddy. The tower begins to sink into the ground and a landslide erupts from the sides of the walls. Things are going from bad to really bad and the two are getting actually close to dying a horrible death. But Silver realizes that they can use their water Pokemon to wash away all the sand. But Poliwhirl isn't putting much work in until it evolves into a Poliwhirl. As you may have noticed, Poliwhirl has a King's Rock, and Silver's noticed this as well, asking Gold to trade with him. And as the tower fully crashes down, the two trainers barely bust out, with Gold's Poliwhirl evolving into a Politoed. Gold is understandably confused about this evolution, but Silver doesn't have time for explanations, since he knows this landslide was caused by a trainer-owned Pokemon. And just then, the two find themselves surrounded by Team Rocket, who waste no time in ambushing the duo. But these two aren't going down without a fight. Gold especially wants to get his revenge on Team Rocket for getting in his way in New Barktown, taking on all the grunts by himself, while Silver fights against Team Rocket's massive Piloswine. Proving his training to be worth it, Gold comes out on top, and Team Rocket decide not to continue fighting since they destroyed the Tin Tower just like they wanted to. And most importantly, their plan involving Ho-Oh should be completed, so they retreat. Gold and Silver trade back Pokemon, and Gold asks Silver about Ho-Oh, noticing his rival's reaction to hearing its name. And whilst he's asking questions, he also takes a chance to ask him what his plan is, as after all, in all of their encounters, instead of choosing to focus on battle, he always chooses to flee, officially challenging his rival to a proper Pokemon battle. And as cool and collected as he is, even Silver can't deny the fact that when two trainers lock eyes, it's time for a battle. The rules are decided with it being a 6v5 tag battle, as Silver's decided to give Gold a 1 Pokemon handicap. Both trainers send out their Pokemon and the battle begins. As usual, Gold's at a disadvantage since they both went for their starter Pokemon. So just like at Violet City, he tries to outsmart Silver using Double Team. But this time, Silver's one step ahead. So Gold has his Sunkern help out Expo, just like planned. But with Sneasel in the way, it's not going to happen so easily. To counter Sneasel, Gold switches for Sudowoodo, who trips Sneasel up with Low Kick and nearly finishes it off with a Dynamic Punch. The debris from the battle causes Silver's Pokegear to fly off, but the battle is still on. Silver also decides to switch, sending out Ursaring to fight against Sudowoodo, then switching again to his newly evolved Kingdra, which he traded with Gold earlier. The two are about to continue their battle, but Silver's Pokegear begins to ring, and the person on the other side tells him to go to the Lake of Rage. In other words, it's time for this fun rival battle to end, as Silver sends out his secret weapon, his 6th Pokemon, Tyranitar. Gold can't even get close to fighting against a beast, and Silver mentions Tyranitar's level so high that even he can't control it. Tyranitar then calls upon a sandstorm, taking down Sudowoodo, Sunkern, Quilava, and Aipom. Politoed tries to fight back, but Silver's got it covered with Murkrow, allowing Tyranitar to finish it off as well. Tyranitar then suddenly stops moving as it begins to wobble, the explanation for this being Gold's own secret weapon, Togepi's Double Edge. An amazing plan that lacks a good ending, as Togepi ends up getting crushed by Tyranitar falling, meaning all 6 of Gold's team are down, and Silver is officially the winner. Gold however is at least happy that he forced Silver to use his 6th Pokemon, throwing his rival his Pokegear and claiming next time they battle, he'll be the winner. Silver realizes that Gold picked up the Pokegear during the sandstorm, instead of giving his Pokemon a command, so it's entirely possible that this fight could have gone in a completely different way. But for now, he has bigger things to focus on, telling Gold one more time to stop following him. But he also answers his questions on Ho-Oh and Team Rocket's plan, revealing that Team Rocket destroyed the tower in order to call upon Ho-Oh, who would notice that his home's been destroyed. And he's on a mission to stop Team Rocket and follow after Ho-Oh, hence why he's going to such extreme lengths to succeed at his goal, with Croconaw giving Quilava a nod of respect. As Silver runs off, Gold knows that he can't let Silver fight alone anymore, so he's going to tag along. What these two will be getting up to will have to wait though, as we're going to be taking a trip all the way back to the Kanto region, as we see the fisherman from before going to a house in Viridian City. He rings on the doorbell and meets up with his niece, and more importantly, our previous main character, Yellow, with us learning he's the one who gifted Yellow Doduo in the past. By Yellow's side is Choo Choo, a Pikachu she helped in the Viridian Forest that bonded with her. Getting straight to business, the fisherman named Wilton asks Yellow to come to Johto with him, in order to search for the flying Pokemon they fought a year ago. But because this is such a dangerous adventure, he needs a skilled trainer to join him. Yellow isn't too confident in her own skills, so instead, she suggests Red, heading outside to find him in his usual training zone. And sure enough, he's there training with Venusaur. But as he calls the Pokemon back, he completely misses the Pokeball. Daisy Oak asks Red if his hands are doing alright, and he explains that his wrists and ankles still go numb every once in a while, due to the ice shackles that got placed on him during the Yellow arc. Heading back to the Johto region, Silver and Gold have arrived at the Lake of Rage, and a bunch of Gyarados are going crazy. Silver explains to Gold that electromagnetic waves are being used to force the Magikarp to evolve, hence the mass outbreak of Gyarados. He then tells Gold to hold them off whilst he finds the source. And just then, the red Gyarados appears. The appearance of the Pokemon makes the waves strengthen, meaning this Pokemon is the transmitter. Silver tells Gold instead of taking it down, they should catch it, as that's what will stop the transmission. Since Gold's too far away to catch it, he leaves it to Silver to get the job done, allowing the red Gyarados to be caught. All the other Gyarados begin to chill out. Silver tries to track down the ultimate source of the waves so that he can destroy it. But before he doesn't want Gold to keep getting involved, since he's still an amateur. But Gold retorts that he can't back out now, since he's already involved with things. Suddenly, the two start getting surrounded by fog, and Gold quickly realizes what's happening, as the last time he ran into this signature fog, he nearly lost his life, revealing the Masked Man. As soon as he appears, Gold immediately starts arguing with the guy, but Silver keeps his cool, noticing that something's not right. Gold sends Polibo to attack, but instead of doing any damage, his hand gets frozen. So Gold goes straight into throwing hands himself, but Silver stops him just in time. Otherwise, he would have charged straight into jagged ice, hidden within the fog. Luckily, Gold then gets a call from Professor Elm, revealing that the powder that he analyzed before matches the same structure used on trainer badges, held by the gym leaders, meaning there's a very high chance that the Masked Man is a gym leader. The only question being, which one? The Masked Man tries to freeze over the two with Blizzard, telling Silver that he won't let him run away like last time. Silver starts to get irritated by this and becomes overly offensive, allowing the Masked Man to get the better of the situation, taking down both Silver and Gold. The man reveals that he's known Silver for at least 5 years, asking the boy if he's been chasing after him for revenge. Gold's just as confused as we are, and the Masked Man explains that 9 years ago he searched the land for trainers with high potential in order to kidnap them, further explaining that children can be molded into the perfect slaves if you teach them early enough.
Police! Help! Police! Help! Help!
Silver wants to fight back, but the Masked Man has Gold at ice point, taunting Silver at his weakness in caring about the safety of others. But Gold lets him know that Silver isn't weak, since he's experienced it firsthand, taunting the Masked Man and allowing Expo to attack Delibird, giving both him and Silver a chance to free themselves. Gold and Silver then agree to properly work together in order to defeat the Masked Man, and they're actually doing really well, but the Masked Man just knows how to get under Silver's skin, bringing up a girl from his past that he escaped with. Gold tells Silver to chill out, but in his rage he freezes Gold's legs, leaving him behind to chase the man. But doing this gets him exactly what he deserves, as the Masked Man easily pushes him back down. Silver won't give up without a fight though, as he's sick of the Masked Man and all of his schemes, showing us a little flashback to his past, such as when he got kidnapped by a bird Pokemon and escaping with a girl that looks oddly familiar. Just like in the Yellow arc, this is very obviously green. Silver then reveals his plan, being to force the Masked Man near the lake, where all the Gyarados from before appear, attacking the Masked Man. All thanks to Silver having the ownership of the red Gyarados. Back with Gold, he's fighting against the Masked Man's Pokemon and manages to get his revenge on them for Ilex Forest. He runs over to Silver, but the lake is completely frozen, including the Gyarados. And atop the lake lies a completely defeated Silver. A massive shard of ice then smashes a hole where Silver was lying, making him sink into the lake. Gold tries to help him out, but he's under the onslaught of the same attack. His resolve hasn't been broken though, making sure the Masked Man knows exactly what he thinks of him. But when there's a giant block of ice flying at you, all his talk doesn't really matter. With Gold dying, now would be a good time to check back with our old protagonist, as Red's Pikachu has met up with Yellow's. Daisy asks Yellow if she's told Red that she's a girl, but she hasn't yet. More importantly though, Yellow asks Red about his hands, and he says it's nothing to worry about. And although right now he should be resting, he just can't, since tomorrow is the day of the Viridian City gym exam. Back at his home, Red speaks to Bill, who reassures him that the gym exam will be light work for him, since the Pokemon Association knows all about him and his heroics. He then gets a ring at his doorbell as Misty and Brock have arrived to give him some notes on how to pass the exam. During the night, Red can't help being nervous. Even though his team is ready and he's got all of his attacks memorized, he still can't shake the gut-wrenching feeling of his hands and legs going numb during the fight. The next day arrives and Red's ready for his exam, taking down all the exam Pokemon with his strategies, such as Belly Drum and Sweet Scent. But eventually he gets caught in Azumarill's whirlpool, which causes his legs to numb faster than usual. The water eventually recedes, allowing Snorlax to take down the Pokemon, and last up is Porygon 2. To counter it, Red sends out his new Pokemon, V, his old Eevee that's evolved now into an Espeon. The Porygon is fast and catches Espeon with a Zap Cannon, but Red isn't the champion for nothing, managing to win the battle. The Pokemon Association congratulate Red, making him the official gym leader of Viridian City. But Red actually declines, since he's accepted the fact that his body isn't in a condition where he should be taking over the gym. Everyone begins to worry as there's now no one who can protect the city and the gym. But fortunately, everyone's favorite second in command, Blue, appears, saying he'll take the role, joined by his own new team addition, Sizzle, who's evolved from his Cypher. Everyone's surprised to see Blue's return, but that explanation will have to wait for later, as an earthquake starts to happen. The gang all head outside and see wild Pokemon surrounding the area. They try to attack, but with Red and Blue there, they stand no chance of winning, and Blue uses False Swipe in order to catch all the Pokemon, demonstrating his skills are definitely fit to be a gym leader. Blue then heads over to the nearby van to turn off the radio, as it was playing the Pokemon March, which causes wild Pokemon to get more active. He then gives Red a Pokeball containing some info that Red was looking for, and Red decides that there's no time like the present, packing his things in order to go for a journey on his own, because he's finally got the knowledge on how to cure his injury, with Daisy explaining atop Mount Silver is a secret hot springs that can heal wounds, and even Saffron City's gym leader Sabrina is up there, since she got hit by the same attack. Because the mountain's really high up and dangerous, Blue trades Red his Charizard, and in return, Red gives Blue his Gyarados. He then makes the choice to leave Pikachu behind with Yellow, as he doesn't want the Pokemon to feel guilty about what happened before. So off Red flies to Mount Silver, but he's not the only one starting an adventure, as Yellow's decided to work up the courage to go to Johto and investigate the massive Pokemon before, with Red's Pikachu also deciding to join her. And with all these new adventures in the story, it's time to have a new adventure in real life, as we're going to be saying goodbye to Mato, the current artist of this series, due to her being in poor health at the time of this. So we'll be saying hello to Satoshi Yamamoto, who'll be illustrating the series from now on. So expect an art style change. Back in the Johto region, Professor Oak is trying and failing to catch Pokemon, which really sucks for him as he was trying to complete the new Pokedex that he had made. He heads back to his research lab in Cherry Grove City and gets a call from Bill, who reports that he's managed to find a trainer to cover the role of catching Pokemon. And this trainer isn't just a regular trainer, instead they're a capture specialist, sending Oak a letter to meet in Violet City. Heading to Violet City, we see a girl working at the Pokemon Academy as a volunteer. However, the Pokemon Academy has seen better days, but since the financial situation is getting worse, it's not easy for this place to keep going. Eventually, Professor Oak arrives and sees a bunch of Slugma attacking the academy. The girl's apron gets caught on fire, so Oak has to step in, introducing himself, saying that he's going to be meeting a skilled trainer who's sure to help them when he arrives. After hearing this, the girl locks in, sending out her own team of 6 Pokemon who help her in catching the Slugma, with her own unique style of kicking Pokeballs. Professor Oak is amazed at her skill, and the girl introduces herself as Crystal, and she's the trainer who'll be helping Professor Oak complete the Pokedex. Some days pass and the Pokemon Academy has been rebuilt, thanks to Crystal's payment in helping Professor Oak, and Crystal receives her very own Pokedex. At the same time as this event, 3 balls of light fly out of Ecruteak City and separate all throughout the Johto region. With her mission being crystal clear, pun intended, Crystal sets out for her journey. The only issue is Professor Elm wanted to speak to her, which Oak forgot about. Elm explains that he wanted to give Chris Chikorita, the only starter Pokemon that had been left behind at his lab. Chikorita really wants to go on an adventure just like his 2 friends, but now that's just not possible, making the Pokemon cry and run after Chris. On Route 30, Chris is catching some wild Pokemon, just like her title says, but Chikorita runs into the fight and ends up getting used as a meat shield, so Chris has to catch both Pokemon. Chris is going to transfer the Pokemon to Professor Oak, but Chikorita protests, wanting to join Chris's team. Chris, however, isn't just accepting any old Pokemon to her team. Instead, she has a team of Pokemon that all help with catching. Chikorita, however, isn't just any old Pokemon, showing its resolve, so Chris decides to test the Pokemon, having her Hitmonchan punch the ground, causing an earthquake. Chikorita though stands firm, proving to Chris that it's ready to join her on her journey. And so she adds it to her team, introducing it to the rest of the members, who all have a star accessory by the way. Crystal's in a bit of a predicament though. Because the storage system is down, it means she can't transfer Pokemon back to Oak. So every Pokemon she catches, she'll just have to bring along with her. On her travels, she finds some Pokemon which she catches like usual, but more importantly, she finds an abandoned Pokegear. The Pokegear speaks out to her, turning out to be Bill, who's currently flying above her. Bill explains that Pokegear is actually for her and has a special cord that allows her to connect to her Pokedex, granting her the all-powerful ability to transfer Pokemon without using the PC system. Bill then gets surrounded by a bunch of Staryu, which chase him all the way to an amusement park. Chris chases after him though, and does what she does best, using both her Pokedex and new storage system to catch the Staryu and save Bill. Wasting no time, Chris gets back on duty, catching Pokemon all day long, and even finding a shiny Pineco. Eventually, she arrives at the Union Cave, where a group of Magnetons surround her, trapping her in a very familiar electric cage. Chris faints from the shock and the Pokemon carry her over to a submarine, dumping her into it before flying away. Lieutenant Surge then makes his grand reappearance, noting that there's no way a trader could be wandering around these caves, getting back into his machine and heading underwater. He speaks over his radio that connects to the SS Aqua, saying he'll be making his return now. But before he can, his ship gets caught up in a reef of Corsola. Crystal wakes up, shocking Surge since somehow he didn't see her in there. Acting fast, she tells Surge that she'll catch the Pokemon, and all he has to do is steer, having a Natu use Psychic to lift the ship, allowing them to resurface and Crystal to catch the leader of the Pokemon. As thanks, Surge invites Crystal onto his ship, and one of the crew members gives her a tour around it. He then explains that Surge isn't the captain of the ship, but he's in charge of it, since he used to be a captain of another ship in the past. However, there's a rumor floating around that he's actually part of a criminal gang. The story of it though is gonna have to wait for another time, as they've arrived at their destination, Olivine City. Crystal gets off the boat, and as she walks, she listens to the radio, learning about the 3 Pokemon that flew out of Ecruteak City, with some people speculating that they could be the 3 legendary Pokemon. She then comes across the battle tower, which is under construction, but as she passes by, a tank full of liquid trash bursts open, spilling into the ocean. This pollution causes massive Qwilfish to appear in anger, so you can probably guess what's gonna happen now. As Crystal catches the Pokemon, one of them signals to her about a smaller Qwilfish that got sick from the polluted water. So she has to hurry to a Pokemon Center, but instead, Suicune appears in front of her, creating a bright flash of light, healing the Qwilfish and completely cleaning the sea. After this miracle encounter, Chris contacts Professor Oak and explains that she thinks she came across a legendary Pokemon, and now that she's seen it, she really wants to collect its data, getting the go-ahead from Professor Oak. Unfortunately for Chris though, Suicune's already left Olivine City, and by the next evening is already in Blackthorn City. Inside the city's gym is its leader, Claire, who's training her Pokemon with one of the gym trainers, who brings up her cousin Lance. Claire then heads for the Dragon's Den, where she can't help but wonder what happened to her cousin. Also in the den though is Suicune, who challenges Claire to a battle, using his skills to outmaneuver and defeat her. The chief of the dragons then appears, explaining to Claire that she fought against Suicune, meaning the Pokemon thought she was a worthy trainer of a challenge, but unfortunately for her, not the trainer it wants to be its own trainer. Nearby Cianwood City, we see a man in a Skarmory flying over the skies, before they get blinded by a light. In the city is Chuck, who's looking forward to meeting up again with his best friend and rival. As he waits, he hears them crashing outside, and goes outside to check the situation, only to find his training equipment completely destroyed. And not only that, but the jacket of his friend torn and on the floor. The one behind this was, you guessed it, Suicune, who's actually fighting against Chuck's friend, Walker, the father of Faulkner, and more importantly, the previous gym leader of Violet City. The two rivals team up to fight against the legendary Pokemon, but despite their veteran skills being able to push Suicune back, even they can't catch the Pokemon, as it flees into the night. Walker and Chuck then have a little talk about how they're going to be getting replaced in the near future by their students, with Chuck's student being Blue and Walker's of course being Faulkner. We jump again to another town in Johto, where Morty is doing favors by using his psychic powers to help out the townspeople. He explains to them that he wants to find the legendary Pokemon Ho-Oh, but his abilities don't work for personal gain. Although that's not his only limitation, as in the past he also tried to track Suicune for his friend called Eusine, but that failed as well. Morty begins to make his way back to Ecruteak, and on his way gets surrounded by fog, immediately realizing Suicune must be here. And sure enough, he's right. After a tough battle, Morty manages to paralyze Suicune, but the Pokemon he was fighting ends up to only be a mirage, as Suicune had already left. Now we can finally head back to a character we care about, in Chris, who's been trying and failing to find Suicune, using her Pokédex's pursuit function to track the Pokemon down. And just when she stops for a rest, the legend itself reappears. Chris uses the best of her abilities to corner the Pokemon by cutting the grass and limiting its hiding spots. But just when she thinks she's got it, it turns out to only be Yucine, who was testing out his 3D projector, which he was using to lure out Suicune. Because Chris is also looking for Suicune, he pronounces her as his rival, running away spraying confetti everywhere. Elsewhere, we see a Ditto transform into Suicune, as per someone's plan. And despite separating less than a chapter ago, Chris runs into Yucine again, but this time they're not alone as Suicune attacks them. The two trainers chase the Pokemon and Chris notices this isn't Suicune, intimidating the Pokemon with her Arcanine, revealing it just to be a Ditto. The two trainers wonder why would someone be trying to make a fake Suicune run around, but they quickly realize it must have been to keep them from getting to the real Suicune. Which we get confirmation from by the fact that the masked man, without his disguise by the way, is directing his henchman Team Rocket to catch the real Suicune, which also tells us that Team Rocket's new boss is the masked man. Crystal checks her Pokédex and notices that Suicune's nearby, so she has a Parasect shoot out spores which make Team Rocket's Pokemon fall asleep. Yucine and Chris then continue their hunt for Suicune, but Yucine decides to take his leave for now, in order to go deal with Team Rocket and let Chris have a chance of fighting Suicune, but not before giving her a walkie-talkie. As for Suicune, Chris has realized that it's heading back to Ecruteak City, in other words, it's home. Eventually, Crystal arrives at Ecruteak's Tin Tower, where Suicune is there waiting. Crystal takes this as a sign of a challenge and sends out her whole team, using their skills to herd Suicune where she wants it, managing to get off some spores on it and narrowly missing with Mega Punch. But this miss was on purpose in order to smash the ground into pieces, knocking Suicune off balance and finally allowing Chris to kick a heavy ball at the Pokemon. However, the Pokemon still breaks out. Chris's next plan is aiming for False Swipe to weaken Suicune, but it blocks the attack by creating its signature Crystal Wall. Yucine contacts Chris, telling her to make sure Suicune doesn't complete its wall, as if it does, they'll be forced outside and Suicune can escape. But if Chris can hold the Pokemon off until Yucine gets there, he can activate the Clear Bell to dispel the effect. So with a race against time, Chris does her best to stop the Pokemon from creating its barrier. But even with her own strength combined with her Pokemon, Cubone's bone breaks and the shards fly everywhere, smashing her Pokegear, knocking off her earring, and impaling the Yucine walkie-talkie, which feels oddly personal. But of course, worst of all, letting Suicune create its crystal wall. The impact of everything pushes Chris off the top of a tower, and just as this happens, Ho-Oh passes over, creating a rainbow. Yucine arrives on scene, finding Chris unconscious with her team. He picks her up and ascends the tower, using the Clear Bell's effect to pass through the barrier. But at the top, they only find Ho-Oh's statue and Suicune nowhere to be seen. Crystal wakes up and apologizes for her failure. Yucine tells Chris that although the city's still in ruins, they rebuilt the tower first as a priority. All because of Ho-Oh, who according to the legend will be angered if his tower's been destroyed. But the people were too late to rebuild it, so Ho-Oh's already been angered, and soon enough it will unleash its wrath. And chances are, Suicune probably came here to meet with Ho-Oh. Now it's time for the amazing Suicune hunter to make his leave, giving Chris's hand a kiss and saying his farewells, and that he enjoyed their time together. With Yucine now gone, Chris can finally let it all out, speaking to Chikorita about how she's disappointed in herself for not realizing Suicune's true intentions and instead getting in her way. Nearby the city though is Suicune, who picks up Chris's earring and takes it with her. Crystal knows though that she doesn't have time to be depressed since she's on a mission, so she begins by trying to catch a Psyduck, but she completely misses. Over at Team Rocket's base, its admins are speaking to the masked man, who orders them not to focus on Yucine anymore, and instead only focus on Suicune. Crystal continues to fail to catch Pokemon, not knowing what's wrong with her, and now that she's at her lowest, she recalls the training she had to undergo to become a capture specialist 5 years ago. Back then, her only Pokemon was Smoochum, and the two of them got rushed by an Arcanine, who ended up making her fall off a ledge and break her arms. And now she's pretty much back at that position, since she can't catch anything. And with perfect timing, Crystal's mother appears, asking her daughter how she's doing and giving her some more Pokeballs from Kerr. And whilst it's there, she also wants Crystal to catch an Azumarill for her. But things go exactly how you'd expect, with Crystal missing again. Her mother asks what's wrong, and Chris breaks down, explaining to her story. Her mother tells her that this is a job, not just a personal mission, meaning she has to complete it, slapping her in the face and giving her a pep talk. Or if you're reading the Viz version, glaring at her. She tells Chris that she's a professional who can overcome anything, suggesting she goes back to her roots. So Crystal does exactly that, heading to the summit of Mount Mortar and tying up her arms, trying to get back into the swing of things. Whilst Crystal begins her training arc, Suicune has made its way to the ruins of Alph, where Bugsy and some researchers are looking at Unknown. Bugsy sees Suicune zip by and chases after the Pokemon until he reaches a dead end. And in this room, some unknown engravings spell out a message that he has to decipher. With the word spelling out escape, he links this to the escape rope item, holding one up to the wall and causing it to break down, revealing Suicune. The Pokemon challenges Bugsy, who accepts, using his bug Pokemon to create a net that links to his own, and together they all trap Suicune. But as you probably expect, Suicune breaks out and runs away. Behind the wall that Suicune broke reads a love message that says Ho-Oh. The next day, Bugsy explains his findings to his fellow researchers and thinks maybe Suicune wasn't just trying to test his skills, but instead trying to leave a message as well. Back with Crystal, we get to see what happened with her back in her past, as after she fell off the ledge, both of her arms were broken, but she didn't feel any more pain. This was all thanks to Cubone and Parasect, who treated her injuries. Hitmonchan and Natu then also greet them, and Chris notices that they're all injured due to fighting against the Arcanine. The beast itself then appears, but Chris has noticed that when it was chasing them, it was hurting them to its left, and that's all due to its right eye having a massive cut under it. So Crystal asks her new friends to help Arcanine just like they did her, and that's how she met her team. All thanks to one happy misunderstanding. Now back in the present, Crystal's finding her training very difficult, and out of nowhere Arcanine starts to get angry, as a Larvitar has made its appearance. The Pokemon attacks Arcanine on its right side, seeming to know its weakness, and Crystal realizes this must be the Pokemon that hurt Arcanine back in the past. The fact it stayed a Larvitar for all those 5 years is kind of embarrassing, I'm not gonna lie. Chikorita gets into action and helps Arcanine, even managing to evolve into a Bayleaf, allowing Crystal to sweep in and finally get a successful capture. And now with her skills successfully back, Crystal can re-begin her journey, heading to the southwest of Johto, and as she does, Suicune watches over her. In Goldenrod City, we see a ninja girl break into a building in hopes of stealing a big pearl. The police bust onto the scene, but the girl's fortress manages to lay spikes on the ground, allowing the girl to escape. This act of thievery though only turns out to be a security test that the Fuchsia City gym leader Janine helped with. But in her own time, Janine can't help but think this work is meaningless. With us getting a flashback that shows Janine speaking to her father, the two discuss that when she's completed her training, she'll join him in serving under Giovanni. But now Giovanni and him have vanished. In her time of depression, Suicune decides now will be a perfect time for a test. But this turns out to be a mistake as Janine uses her ninja skills alongside her Pokemon to nearly take down Suicune. But ultimately, she still takes the loss. She tells the Pokemon that she looks forward to having a rematch, and for seemingly the first time, the Pokemon acknowledges with respect. Next up on the gym leader chopping board is Falkner, who's training with his Skarmory. Another trainer then appears, asking if he's caught any rare Pokemon, but Falkner's confused by this, since they're in the Safari Zone right now, and this trainer is a poacher, showcasing his collection to Falkner. A cloud of rain then comes over them, with a massive bolt of thunder striking down, revealing our legend not to be Suicune but actually Raikou, who's not alone, as on the other side stands Entei. The Pokemon chase Falkner and attack with Spark and Fire Blast, being super effective on Skarmory. But the trainer and Pokemon duo stay strong, using tricks to get the Pokemon to cancel each other's attacks out, and ultimately wear both of them down, giving him the chance to catch them. But as he goes for the throw, Suicune intervenes. So now this 2v1 is a 3v1, but Falkner's always been waiting to fight Suicune, using a plan involving throwing a ton of boomerang Pokeballs made out of Skarmory's feathers. Because of this, Suicune can't keep an eye on all the Pokeballs and their trajectory, but at the last second, it gets saved by Raikou and Entei, who destroy Falkner's Pokeballs. In the battle, Skarmory's wing got destroyed, so it begins to lose balance, but before they crash, they're saved by Suicune's bubble. The three legends then communicate through telepathy, before splitting up once more. And although he displayed an impressive showcase, Falkner knows deep down if Raikou and Entei weren't around, Suicune probably would have fought back anyway. He then traps the other trainer, saying he is under arrest for poaching and trespassing on Pokemon League ground. Now that we've spent time with the gym leaders, we can now go check up on Red, who's doing his trip up Mount Silver. Already at the top of the mountain is Sabrina, who's speaking to Surge on the phone. Surge reports that Team Rocket sightings have been continuously going on, but this shouldn't be the case since Giovanni disbanded the crew, meaning now there's a new boss at Team Rocket, whilst keeping it a secret from Giovanni and the other members of the Triad. So sorry to get your hopes up, we're not going to be following Red, instead we're going to be following another gym leader. Surge then makes his way to the shop by the Lake of Rage, discovering a secret passage underground, hosting a Team Rocket training center. A weird voice then speaks out to him, being, you guessed it, the masked man. Surge wastes no time in surrounding the man, but he doesn't feel threatened at all, instead having his Houndour howl and call its friends to its side, mentioning that no one gets in his way and makes it out alive, just like the two kids who fought him and are now lying at the bottom of the lake. But the masked man isn't the only person with allies, as Surge busts out all of his electrodes to explode with self-destruct, allowing Surge to escape. Well, barely escape, as he crawls to the lake, knowing that he can't battle the masked man without more power. As he gets closer, he sees bubbles coming from under the lake, so with no other option, he gets his submarine and heads down. And what he finds there is the red Gyarados frozen solid. The Gyarados then breaks out of the ice, dashing past Surge and smashing its head on another block of ice. Surge gets a closer look and sees something inside the ice, and Gyarados eventually passes out, allowing Surge to realize that something inside the ice must belong to the trainers that the masked man mentioned. Using the power of his ship, Surge melts the ice and grabs what's inside of it. But unfortunately for Gyarados, all he can find is belongings, no bodies. Although this isn't all bad, as inside Gold's bag is his Pokedex, which begins to buzz. Whatever happened to Gold and Silver will have to wait, as Chris has got her Pokegear fixed and repaired, so now she's fully back at 100% and can continue her journey. Her next destination was meant to be Cianwood City, but because she can't surf, she has no other options. A couple of surfing Pikachu then dash by, but one of them ends up getting flung off, and Chris is about to get involved, but Yellow runs past her, catching the Pokemon. She apologizes to Crystal for nearly running into her, but recognizes her as the person she's been looking for. She guides Crystal over the sea with her flying Pokemon, explaining she came here in order to help with the legendary beasts, and in fact was the one who awakened them. Over at Ecruteak City, Morty's arrived home, and he immediately gets attacked by a Magnemite. A voice then asks him if he's Morty the Clairvoyant, this voice belonging to Surge. Surge continues to speak, asking Morty to use his abilities to find the owner of the gear he found, even going as far as to offer the guy money. Morty uses his abilities to find out whether Surge got the money legit or not, and surprisingly, during the 2-year time skip, Surge has been all clean, working hard on the SS Aqua, so Morty agrees to help him. Back with Crystal and Yellow, the two meet up with Yellow's uncle, who's on his boat, and the three properly introduce themselves to each other. Crystal then contacts Professor Oak, and he explains that he had Yellow kill 2 Pidgeys with 1 stone since she was already in Johto. So with new help, Crystal can now head to Cianwood City, but things are never that easy, as a super strong Whirlpool begins to suck them in. And if you're familiar with Pokemon game location knowledge, you'll know exactly where they are. At the same time as this, Morty manages to track Gold and Silver, with them not being at the bottom of the Lake of Rage, but instead at an Oceanus Whirlpool location. Once again, you should know where this is. And we finally get to see the two boys, who are surrounded by a ring of fire created by Entei. Now we're going to make a really odd jump away from the action to DJ Merry, the Pokemon Association director, and the radio crew, who are all on the way to Mahogany Town. Also joining this odd party is Whitney. This group of people is all here to meet Pryce. Why, you ask? Well, that's due to the actions of Suicune. They can now tell that Suicune's probably going to be next battling Pryce. Pryce himself then appears to greet his guests, showcasing his ice sculptures, one of which being a Suicune that begins to move, making the group realize this very well could be the real Suicune. Whitney never got a turn against a Pokemon and wants to have a battle against it, so she does just that, confusing it and hitting it hard with Rollout. But against Suicune, that's nowhere near enough, so Pryce steps in. He knows all about the tricks that Suicune's used against the other gym leaders, and Whitney wonders how he knows this. But now that the battle's begun, there's no time to explain. Pryce puts his knowledge to good use, evading all of Suicune's attacks and teaming up with Whitney to figure out the real Suicune amongst his doubles. They then freeze the Pokemon with Blizzard, and Whitney throws a Pokeball, which goes directly through the frozen Pokemon. But it's all good, as this Suicune really was just an ice sculpture that Pryce had his Pokemon make move, a new technique that he developed in order to help with his training. With their meeting of Pryce complete, the group heads back home, and Pryce speaks with his Pokemon, saying that Suicune will probably never come to challenge him, and that's for a good reason. Now we can finally get back to the main story, as Gold is finally waking up after being out of commission for 3 whole weeks. Silver also wakes up and realizes that they must have been saved by someone, but all they can remember is a shadow coming to their rescue and melting their frozen bodies with flames, or as Silver likes to call them, the flames of life, hence why they managed to survive for 3 weeks. Lieutenant Surge has now arrived at the island Morty told him about, finding Gold and Silver and returning them their belongings. He asks the two of them if they fought against a masked man, but first Silver has a more important question, being, did he arrive here on ship? Because if so, they should turn around, as the SS Aqua has begun flying. And not only that, the ruler of the seas, Lugia, has appeared. Also flying in the sky is Crystal's group. Silver recognizes the Pokemon as Lugia and the Pokemon begins to attack them. So he decides to fly up to the Pokemon and begin his battle. As for Gold, he's gonna have to stick with Surge since he doesn't have a flying or surfing Pokemon for his own. Whilst in the cage, Gold explains to Surge that the Masked Man is all about ice, but against Surge, he didn't use any of this ice. Down below, Yellow confirms Lugia was the Pokemon that she saw 2 years ago, and Crystal's Pokedex begins to beep. Yellow explains that this means there's 2 other Dex holders nearby, but they don't have any time to be chatting since Lugia aeroblasts their ship in 2. Silver tries to understand why Lugia is going berserk, but then he notices the boat down below, heading to help out. Gold from up above also spots this and hops down to do the same. And like usual, the 2 arrive to save the girl at the same time. But in doing this, they've unintentionally caused the first meeting of all 3 Dex holders of Johto, and allowing their starter Pokemon to all reunite as well. The only issue is, these guys can't get along with each other at all. Silver wants to leave, but Gold says that their Pokemon are ready to fight against Lugia, so they should give them a chance. So Silver decides to cooperate, coming up with a plan to stop Lugia's aeroblasts. The goal of the plan is to bring Lugia underwater, where there's no air. So him and Crystal fly up to the Pokemon, getting into close combat, leaving Gold unfortunately stranded. He then gets a phone call from Wilton, who tells Gold that he has something useful for him. But then a massive wave comes through, washing Gold underwater. As he sinks down below, he sees a bunch of Remoraids and Pokeballs, these being some Pokemon that Crystal caught with Yellow and Wilton earlier. But not only that, there's also a wild Mantine, and with this he comes up with a plan, blasting out of the water by using Remoraid's water gun paired with Mantine's gliding abilities. They attack Lugia and with their combined power, manage to lodge Gold's billiard cue in its mouth. Gold then gets sent down to the beach and Silver and Chris head to help him out, but Lugia rushes after all of them, trying to flatten them with its massive wings. Luckily for them though, their Pokemon all work together to hold it up, and at the same time, they all evolve into their final stage. Gold asks Silver where Lugia's weak point is, and Silver says that it's his forehead. So Gold goes to throw a Pokeball but misses, allowing Chris to follow up like she's a Sagi and score a hit on Lugia. The group celebrate, thinking they've caught a Pokemon, but when Silver goes to pick up the ball, it's empty inside. They all theorize what could have happened to the Lugia, using the Pokemon tracking system. As they do this, they probably introduce themselves to each other, and Silver investigates the area, noticing one of the caves has signs of a battle, meaning Lugia was probably attacked before it got to them. The Pokedex then comes back with a reply, reading error, meaning Lugia didn't escape, instead it got caught by someone else. As for Surge, he makes his way back to the SS Aqua and gets a message reading he and the other gym leaders need to head to Goldenrod City immediately. Back with the gang, Silver takes flight, realizing the person who fought Lugia must have been waiting for the chance to attack them. In other words, this was just a setup. Crystal says that he should wait and ask the professors for some assistance, but Gold says just to let him go. As after all, they all have a common enemy, so even if they go separate ways, they'll reunite eventually. Crystal then remembers about Yellow and Wilton, but before they can worry about that, Professor Oak calls. He tells the 2 not to worry about Yellow, since she's pretty tough. Instead, they need to head for the Indigo Plateau. As for Silver, he makes his way to one of the Otherworld Islands, and has his water Pokemon open a secret path with the hidden moves, thus opening a route to the secret lair, where Silver reports to a shadowed figure on his return. This figure being Lance, the ex-leader of the Elite Four. Whilst these 2 mysterious trainers meet, the Kanto trio of Brock, Misty and Erica have arrived at the Tojo Falls, trying to get to Johto just like the request. As they travel though, Misty is zoning out and ends up falling off the damaged bridge. Luckily for her, Starmie's here to help, so she can fight against the waterfall. Although she's fine, she spots a Krabby nearby who's struggling. Over at the Pokemon Association in Goldenrod, Bill asks the director why he's called the Kanto gym leaders to Johto, and Janine is also present to hear this reason. The director explains that the gym leaders have trainer badges that they're meant to give out to trainers, and if a trainer can get all 8 badges, they can compete in the league finals without having to go through the preliminaries. In the past, these badges were used for evil, so now they need to restore the honor of these badges. The other reason for calling them here though will have to wait, since not everyone's present. Misty wakes up now behind the waterfall, realizing that Starmie saved both her and Krabby. Seeing the wild Krabby makes her reminisce about Red, since they actually traded Pokemon and he gave her a Krabby. If you haven't caught on yet, Misty has feelings for Red, which she wants to tell him about but can never seem to find the right chance. Suddenly appearing through the waterfall is Suicune. The Pokemon challenges Misty like expected, but unlike all of our other challengers, Misty is a water type expert. Outside the waterfall, Brock receives a message from the association, saying that all gym leaders will participate in an exposition match against each other. However, there's no time to be shocked by this news, as Misty's fight ends up with both her and Suicune falling to the bottom of the falls. They continue their fight underwater, and Suicune then sends a message to Starmie, who writes it out in the ancient starglyphs, which Misty can understand. The message reads that a great evil is stirring and it requires a partner to help it in battle, so it has chosen Misty, and of course Misty accepts. She then reunites with her friends and the group continue to Johto. Now that Suicune's finally settled down, let's talk about how the legendary beast awakened in the first place. After the Tin Tower had been attacked, the 3 Pokemon woke up from their slumber, realizing they must find some human allies to repay their debt from the past, as soon Ho-Oh will be returning. As the townspeople rebuild the tower, Yellow arrives. Jasmine explains the legend behind the towers of Ecruteak, the Tin Tower and the Burn Tower, which is coincidentally burning right now. Yellow uses her Pokemon to put the fire out, but something pulls her into the smoke, getting absorbed into a rock. Inside this rock, she encounters the legendary beasts, who thank Yellow for freeing them, and the 3 escape out of the tower. Yellow goes back to her group and Jasmine continues the story, which I trust that we all know about, being the classic Ho-Oh resurrecting the 3 dead Pokemon, which eventually became the legendary beasts. Back to the present time, we now go to Team Rocket's secret base, where these 3 Team Rocket members called Ken, Ao and Harry are being punished for failing a mission. The Masked Man then appears, angered by Team Rocket's uselessness, but at least he has his 2 admins, Sham and Carl, who he personally trained by himself. The 3 of them then speak to the other members of Team Rocket about how it's now time for Team Rocket to be reborn, and now they'll finally announce this at the Pokemon League. At said league, we see Evan and Miles, who we met in the previous arc, training against each other. These 2 want to compete in the league, but like most people, they don't have all 8 badges, so they'll be taking part in the preliminaries. Before the actual league can begin, the Gym Leader exhibition matches have to happen, and everyone's favorite radio gang are here to host it. The league director then begins the opening ceremony by introducing the previous champion, Red. But Red isn't around, so they'll just have to begin the matches. During this time, the Masked Man is flying towards Ecruteak City, revealing to us that he's the one who made the Ho-Oh statue, and it alerts him whenever Ho-Oh's nearby, which just so happens to be now, as he ascends the clouds reuniting with the legendary bird, giving us some more lore in that information, being that he met the Pokemon 9 years ago. The 2 then proceed to battle, but the results of this battle will have to wait for later. Golden Crystal are traveling to the league as planned, and soon enough they arrive. And with some confirmation from Professor Oak, the 2 trainers know the Masked Man must be here in the stadium. Down below on the battlefield, the Magnet Train finally arrives, with its doors opening to reveal all 16 gym leaders. They get their introductions sorted and the matchups are decided through picking Apricons. Our pairings go as follows: Lane vs Claire, Surge vs Morty, Blue vs Chuck, Brock vs Jasmine, Misty vs Whitney, Janine vs Faulkner, Bugsy vs Sabrina, and lastly Erica vs Price. Golden Crystal watch from the stands, keeping an eye on all of the gym leaders, as one of them is guaranteed to be the Masked Man. Let me know in the comment section down below, who do you think the Masked Man is? Our first match is Jasmine vs Brock, with Brock learning the power of the newly discovered Steel types, taking an L against Jasmine. Whilst these matches are underway, I might as well tell you why the matches are happening in the first place. After Elm researched the gold powder and confirmed it related to the gym badges, Professor Oak told this to the Pokemon Association, and these guys agreed to help out by hosting this tournament so that they can find out who the guy is. In other words, this whole entire tournament is just a setup to find the Masked Man. Whitney vs Misty is next, but Misty takes a W relatively easily. After that is Faulkner vs Janine. This match is much closer as both trainers are skilled in fast combat battles. Faulkner gets pushed to the brink, but he can't give up after succeeding his father, and Janine sees her own father's silhouette in the crowd, making her call off the battle and chase after him. But she was too slow, and Faulkner asks her what happens, so she explains her situation to him. After bonding about their father figures, Faulkner takes the chance to mention that this whole time he's been feeling an ominous feeling around the stadium, so they should remain vigilant. On the Kanto team's side, tensions are high as Erica doesn't fully trust Surge or Sabrina after what happened with Team Rocket, and honestly, I don't blame her. She tries to break the ice by asking Sabrina if she saw Red at the top of Mount Silver, which she confirmed she did, but she doesn't have any reason to tell them anything else, heading back to the locker rooms. Fortunately for us, we're not Erica or Misty, so we're gonna get to find out what happens. Red finally arrives at Mount Silver's hot springs and begins resting. Charizard's pretty curious about the water and puts its tail near it, making it erupt. A voice then explains to Red that these hot springs have flammable gases, so fire-type Pokemon should stay away. Red turns around but ends up crashing into an invisible light screen created by, you guessed it, Sabrina and her Mr. Mime. To make the situation less awkward, Sabrina asks Red about his Eevee, and he reveals that it evolved into an Espeon, but now it can't transform into the other forms anymore. But he's fine as long as it's happy. Sabrina then prepares to leave since her injuries have healed, informing Red about the meeting of gym leaders. However, Red isn't going to have enough time to heal himself and make it for the tournament. So Sabrina leaves him with a spoon of destiny, as well as a note telling him of a more effective hot spring that has the power to heal his wounds faster, but is much harder to get to as it's even further up the mountain. Back to the present, Surge's battle with Morty has begun, and although Surge is stronger, he can't keep up with Morty's tricks, so the battle ends in a draw due to Destiny Bond. The next battle is Bugsy vs Sabrina, and although Bugsy has the type advantage, everyone knows early gen psychic types are unmatched, and Sabrina takes the victory. Jumping away from the action again, we go to the Well Islands, where Silver returns Lance's Tyranitar, saying he failed to control it. He then surprisingly holds Lance at Sneasel Point, as the only reason he worked with the guy was because he wanted to get closer to his enemy, demanding Lance reveal everything he knows about the Masked Man. Lance reminisces about the first time he met Silver, being in the dead of the night at the Battle Tower construction site, where Silver ambushed Lance a while after his defeat against Yellow. Lance uses his power to read the minds of Silver's Pokemon, finding out what he wants from him, which of course is info on the kidnappings. Unfortunately though, Lance has nothing to do with this crime, and now he wants to live his life in solitude, regretting his previous actions. Although he does have some info that Silver can use, with the price being that he allows him to train him, and so Silver agrees to becoming Lance's student for 6 months, which brings us back to now, where Silver wants to know this knowledge. Lance reads the mind of Silver's Sneasel as he's had it since he was kidnapped, revealing when they were with the Masked Man, there were 6 children there, 3 males and 3 females. All of them had to wear a mask and train under the Masked Man, who aimed for them to excel in a specific skill. For Silver it was trading, and for Green it was evolution. But Green, who was paired up with Silver, managed to find a way to escape, so she took Silver and left, along with stealing something from the Masked Man, this something being the Rainbow and Silver Wing, which makes Lance realize what the Masked Man wants, and that's the ability to control time. So with this newly acquired information, Silver heads straight for the Indigo Plateau. Now seems like a good time to check in on Yellow, who wakes up at the Pokemon daycare, getting greeted by the daycare couple. Yellow recognizes the name of the place, as in the past Jasmine gave her a note with its address. The couple reveal that Yellow and her uncle got washed up at the shore, and the only identification they had was the address of the daycare, hence why they're here. Yellow then finally notices the egg that Pika and Choo Choo had together, but questions surrounding this will have to wait for later, as the lady wants Yellow and Wilton to blow some balloons, for whatever reason. Yellow then notices a photo in the house, showcasing the daycare couple in their youth, along with Agatha, Oak and Kurt. Silver arrives at the Pokemon League, getting straight past the security by presenting all 8 gym badges, which in truth he actually stole. He then sneaks into the gym leader locker rooms, trying to find out who could be the Masked Man, eventually coming across Blue's room. At the same time as this, Blue receives a call telling him to head to the stadium. But suddenly, he feels an abnormal heat rush over him, busting down the door and finding Silver hiding. Silver can also feel this heat, and the 2 trainers get straight to battling, with both thinking the other caused the heat. But they soon discover what's really causing this heat is in fact the legendary Pokemon Entei. Since he's late, Daisy makes her way to Blue's room, only to find him and Silver battling against Entei with their Gyarados. Entei then runs away and Silver chases after it. Blue wants to do the same, but he can't, since now he has a match to attend to, and his opponent is his teacher. Blue apologizes to Chuck for being late, and the 2 get ready to begin. Blue starts off by showcasing his whole team, which consists of the Pokemon he caught at the start of the arc, but for this battle he'll only be using Rhydon. Although we know Blue's only second to Red, Chuck is no slouch, pushing Blue's new Pokemon to its limits. We then get to see a flashback of when Blue first met Chuck. Back then, Blue was just a little kid, and he came to Chuck in order to get out of Professor Oak's shadow and become a strong trainer of his own right. In his training with Chuck, he learned that trainers have to sync with their Pokemon in order to truly fight. Back with Silver, he continues looking for Entei, understanding it was the very same Pokemon that saved him and Gold from the Lake of Rage. It turns out though, Entei is already partnered with a trainer, this trainer being Blaine, the Fire-type gym leader of Kanto. Blaine still suffers from the same arm mutation he did in the previous arc, but with Entei's Flames of Life, it might just be the cure he needs. Back with Blue's battle, he's finally got the chance to counterattack against Chuck, having his Rhydon's drill counter Hitmontop's own drill, but by working with his Pokemon, Blue tells Rhydon to spin its drill faster and in opposite direction, allowing him to defeat Chuck. Chuck congratulates his student on his victory, officially letting the student surpass the master. Blue also explains his reasoning for just using Rhydon, and that's because the previous gym leader Viridian was a ground expert, and he made a book covering the secrets behind ground Pokemon, so Blue read and learned from it. But enough small talk, as both trainers can sense that the stadium is being engulfed in some kind of evil aura. Back with Blaine, Entei begins to burn his arm, but instead of injuring him, it disconnects him from Mewtwo, as we now see Mewtwo leave Cinnabar Island as a free wild Pokemon. Just around the corner, Silver comes across a mysterious old man and his Abra, The man tells him that he's going to be teleporting Silver somewhere else, so he doesn't get into any more trouble. Silver understandably thinks this guy is an enemy, but in truth, this person's his one true ally, being Green. She apologizes to Silver for making him do all the hard work, but now she'll be stepping in to get the job done. Heading back to the tournament, we now have the captain battle of Erica vs Price. Although she has a type disadvantage, Erica puts in good work against Price, but in the end, she still couldn't match up against Price's ice attacks, which was so subtle no one could even see them. No one except for Morty anyway. Morty respects Price for his skills, but finds him very enigmatic. The league director can't see Price being the masked man, since he's way too modest. But Gold and Silver find the similarities to the masked man something they can't ignore. For example, they both use ice Pokemon and they have similar strength, meaning he very well could be their enemy. The two then clock on that someone's watching them, and when Gold runs after them, they run away. They chase the figure into the control room, finding the guy who's meant to be in control knocked out by, you guessed it, Team Rocket. They reveal their plan has already begun, and they're about to broadcast this to everyone tuning into the league. They show Gold and Crystal on a monitor the masked man fighting against Ho-Oh, but this shouldn't be possible as all the gym leaders are present at the stadium. Gold wants to waste no time and take down Team Rocket, but him and Crystal can't move as they're currently under the effects of Raw. Aipom comes in clutch though, getting a Pokeball from Gold's bag, allowing Polibo to use Hypnosis. Team Rocket's Pokemon fall asleep, but they came well prepared with Sleep Talk and Snore, so the fight has to continue. Gold and Crystal come up with a plan of having Sunflora and Parasect use Giga Drain and absorb their foe's strength. Carl and Sham also fall down in defeat with their Pokemon, but although they lost, they fulfilled their mission in starting the Magnet Train with Team Rocket on it. Gold and Crystal need to escape and let everyone know, but they've been locked inside the control room, and even their Pokemon can't bust down the door. With no way out, Gold connects himself to the speaker system, informing everyone that Team Rocket has successfully infiltrated the stadium. But his message gets cut out and replaced with the masked man fighting Ho-Oh. Whilst Gold was doing this, Crystal's Parasect managed to make a corrosive poison that melts the door, allowing them to finally escape. Down below, the Magnet Train rushes onto the battlefield, and Team Rocket appeared to fight the gym leaders. The gym leaders all work together to force the Team Rocket members back onto the train, but the train begins to move with them on it. The stadium begins filling with smoke as all the innocents try to escape. Gold and Crystal go to speak with the radio station duo who inform them of what happened to the gym leaders, making them realize they must have been trying to get the gym leaders away from the scene. A sinister laugh then confirms the suspicion, being the masked man, who now has ownership of both Lugia and Ho-Oh. The two legends attack the arena, destroying everything, and Gold and Crystal run for their lives, trying to think of a way to stop the legendaries. They realize that the Pokemon are attacking in unison, meaning for now, they have to separate them. Gold fights against Ho-Oh while Crystal fights against Lugia, and despite its legendary status, Gold manages to push back Ho-Oh, making the masked man target him specifically. But in doing this, it allows Crystal to catch Lugia off guard with a Future Psi attack. With the two trainers actually working so in sync, they actually have a chance of victory. But the masked man begins transforming into a larger form, revealing he's waited 10 years for this and won't let anyone stop him now, commanding Ho-Oh to trap Gold and Crystal in a ring of fire. He then goes to attack the crowd, grabbing Kurt and demanding him to create the Pokeball that can capture time itself. Gold asks what he means and he explains that the previous evil leaders like Team Rocket and the Elite Four all tried to rule the world for their own reasons, but his reason trumps them both, as he wants to control time, stealing the Pokeball creation scroll from Kurt, revealing the needed materials to be the Rainbow and Silver Wing. Gold's enraged at the masked man for his ability to use people like Silver, Kurt, and even Team Rocket, but the masked man just remains silent. Gold then asks him, what about the Pokemon? He can't really believe that they're just tools, after all he's experienced in his life. But the masked man waits a bit before answering, before confirming his beliefs that they're in fact tools. At this point, Gold's angry enough to go Super Saiyan, but the masked man traps Gold in Ho-Oh's flames. He then makes the bad choice of flying away, since he has no more reason to fight against him. Although Gold's will to fight hasn't given up, his body has, causing him to faint from his wounds. Aboard the Magnet Train, Claire notices that the members of Team Rocket are being controlled, which is evident by the mask they're wearing. She also thinks that the person controlling them is most likely Blaine, since he was gone for most of the tournament. But not only that, she's still got a grudge against him for what happened with Lance, wanting to battle him here and now. So the other gym leaders continue fighting, with Missy especially being on her A game. Erica notices this, giving her a flower, saying after all this is done, she should get her feelings dealt with. As for Blaine, he's getting chucked around by Claire, who demands to know what happened to Lance. But after a while, Blaine finally locks in, using Entei to teach Claire a lesson. But also giving her some peace of mind, that although he doesn't know where Lance is, he does know that he was weaker than him back then, so if he's alive, Lance must be as well. Rushing away to help out, with Misty joining his side. Surge reaches the back of the train where he fights Ken, Al and Harry, who were meant to be loyal to Giovanni. But now they're under the control of the Masked Man. But by bringing up the memories of the past, he brings them back to their senses. With his men back on their feet, he detaches the back of the train so they can start heading back to the Indigo Plateau. But in doing so, makes the front of the train start to speed up. Blue's at the front of the train and reports to everyone that at the speed they're going, they won't be able to stop the train and they'll crash. Meanwhile at the back, Surge tells the leaders that he's with what he did, showcasing he earned the trust of Raikou, and that's how he was able to control the train's direction. So Blaine, Misty and Surge use their legendary Pokemon to escape from the train and arrive at the Indigo Plateau. Once there, they immediately begin their fight against Ho-Oh, Lugia and the Masked Man. And to make matters even better, because they're experts in their type, they also have the Mystic Water, Charcoal and Magnet for the legendary Pokemon, boosting their powers even more. Misty managed to learn the story of the Masked Man through Suicune speaking to Starmie, explaining that the man met Ho-Oh 9 years ago and used his abilities to kidnap special children for their natural talents. But in using Ho-Oh's power for evil, the legendary beast got angry and fought the Masked Man, which resulted in Ho-Oh escaping, but the legendary beast getting sealed in the rock inside the burned tower. But this time things are going to be different since they have trainers at their side, so the legendary beasts do a much better job, trapping Misty and the Masked Man in Suicune's crystal wall. And now she can finally reveal his true identity, or at least that's what they think, but he breaks out, splitting his body in two and grabbing Surge by the neck. Entei has no choice but to shoot fire straight through him, but somehow it doesn't kill him. Instead, he sends the Pokemon flying. Suicune then gets hit by Cursed and is weakened enough to allow the Masked Man's legs to kick Misty to the ground. Misty's now by herself stuck inside the crystal wall and can't escape, but luckily the goat Ucine appears, using the Clear Bell to dispel the wall and help Misty and Suicune. Crystal's about to go get Gold's body so Ucine can heal him as well, but he's already left. Some of the Johto leaders arrive back at the plateau and speak with the director, revealing the Masked Man isn't human, being able to move after being split in two and having a hole shot through his stomach, which makes Whitney realize the true identity of the Masked Man. Speaking of, the guy flies away, with Gold chasing right after him. The man can't hold his excitement of the thought of getting to see his two Lapras again, telling the legendary birds that Will and Karen are waiting for them, so they should go to them and not let anyone near him. He then lands at his destination, being the Ilex Forest Shrine, as tonight is the night the shrine will shine again. But before he can achieve his goal, one boy with a gold heart stands in his way. The Masked Man can't help but laugh at Gold, as not only has he lost once, not twice, but 3 times against him, but he still wants to fight him. But for Gold, that's just how he rolls, giving his team headbands and having them fight in doubles, starting with Aipom and Sudowoodo. Aipom sets up with agility and the Masked Man regenerates his arm, knocking the Pokemon away. Against a foe that can infinitely regenerate, Gold can't possibly win, but he still won't give up, having the rest of his team join the fight, since at this point this isn't a simple Pokemon battle. Sudowoodo grabs the Masked Man with immense speed, thanks to Aipom secretly using Baton Pass. Delibird then gets taken down by Polybo's Perish Song, and when the Masked Man tries to regenerate his legs, he gets blocked by Sunflora's Sunny Day, stopping the ice from forming, and with Expo's flames, the flames are even melting his body. And with his perfect team strategy proving to be a success, Gold slams his Q into the Masked Man's face, breaking his mask, allowing us to finally find out his identity is what I would say, but that's something we'll find out soon enough. Back at the Indigo Plateau, the Masked Man's legs continue to move, forcing Falconer to have to arrest him with handcuffs. But it turns out these legs aren't legs, instead they're just ice cubes. And as for Whitney, she knows the identity of the Masked Man, and Morty does too. And I'm gonna show who it is in 3 seconds, so put your predictions in the comments. Okay, 3, 2, it's Pryce. It's obviously Pryce. If you didn't guess correctly, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a bit disappointed in you. Anyway, Green has arrived at the Ilex Forest, and she's ready to finally exact her revenge. But this chance of revenge will have to wait, as she's being held up by Karen and Will, the other 2 children who were also raised by the Masked Man. Green does her best to fight them, but she gets afraid when Will starts using Xatu, triggering her fear of bird-like Pokemon. She does her best to run away, but they corner her, wanting her to return the feathers that she stole all those years ago. But those feathers are currently somewhere else, somewhere safe. In other words, Yellow's hat. Everyone at the daycare listens to the radio, wanting to know what happened at the event, but just then Team Rocket break in, trying to attack. Yellow fends them off with her team, and Pika and Choo Choo escape by holding onto a bunch of balloons. The Team Rocket members all chase after Yellow, trying to steal her hat. Back with Green, Will and Karen, they reveal that they already know where the feathers are. Ho-Oh then arrives on the scene, and the 2 force Green to face her trauma, practically making her faint. And to rub salt in the wound, they show Green that they caught Silver as well, who managed to find out where Green was headed. Ho-Oh rushes at the group, but this time Green isn't going to let her fear take over, as after seeing Silver in danger, she decides now's the best time to show off her trump card, the 3 legendary birds, Zapdos, Moltres and Articuno. Will calls for Lugia and the battle between birds commences, with Silver even tagging along on Lugia's back. Whilst they all battle, the forest shrine begins to glow. Back over at the front half of the bullet train, things are looking really bad, as now they finally arrived at the station, but suddenly a trainer appears on the tracks, sending out Snorlax who catches the train. This trainer of course being the GOAT Red, here with not only Blue's Charizard but also Green's Blastoise. He apologizes to his friends for his lateness, but now he's here to save the day like usual. The rest of the gym leaders will hold off Team Rocket, whilst Blue and Red dig a tunnel underground to get to the stadium. As they travel, the Spoon of Destiny alerts them where they should go, so they change direction from the stadium, heading for the Ilex Forest. Suddenly, 2 shadows appear behind them, these belonging to Bruno and Koga. The 4 trainers get into a scuffle, but Koga and Bruno call off their attack, revealing they're actually here to help the 2 reach their destination, as they're also heading for the Ilex Forest to defeat the Masked Man. And now, they don't work for anyone, but instead themselves. The 2 random trainers became friends as Bruno helped Koga escape from Cerise Island, back when it was falling apart. And since then, they've been training partners, striving to get to the point where they can beat their Dex Holder rivals, Blue and Red. Before they can get out of the tunnel though, Bruno tells them about a mythical Pokemon called Celebi, which can apparently travel through time, and the Ilex Forest is said to be the home of this Pokemon. Once outside, Red and Blue are already at the shrine, and their Pokedex begin beeping, meaning that Green is here. And like usual, it'd be right, as Green is above them fighting. She notices her friends down below and lends them a bird each, giving them the upper hand against the tower duo. Atop Lugia, Silver's fighting Will, and here we learn that Will and Karen didn't actually get kidnapped. Instead, they went to the Masked Man of their own free will. Silver then takes this revelation as a chance to stop holding back against his former childhood friend? Ally? I don't really know what to call their relationship, but he pushes them both off Lugia, having his team use Beat Up on Xatu as they fall. Silver then uses the move that he's always been trying to master, Return, which defeats Will, and that's some good character development, as before his Totodile would use Frustration, but now they're friends. With his defeat being evident, Will retreats, telling Karen to do the same. And whilst they're leaving the forest, someone new arrives, being Yellow, who's finally escaped the Team Rocket grunts. And with nearly all the main actors reaching the stage, we can finally get back to the fight you've been waiting for, and that's Gold vs Price. Knowing he's been cornered, Price takes the chance to grab Pika and Choo-Choo's bad timing to create a hostage situation. At the stadium, Morty uses his powers and finds Price's cane, which holds a special Pokegear inside it, which is what allowed him to see what his Ice Double was doing and command his team using Morse code, which the Pokegear could translate. And honestly, you gotta respect the hustle. Price was a pretty impressive mastermind. And his evilness doesn't stop there, as he forces Gold to surrender. In a situation like this, he'd normally kill Gold, but now he doesn't need to anymore, since he's going to be escaping to another timeline. But still, since he has the chance, he mercilessly beats down Gold with his ice body, whilst waiting for the GS ball to complete itself, using the feathers that he took from Ho-Oh and Lugia. The Pokeball's creation causes a portal to open, and Price leaves through it. The daycare couple and Wilton then arrive, who fortunately got a letter from Professor Oak, which they give to Gold. Gold has high hopes for this, thinking Professor Oak has a Deus Ex Machina plan for them, but as he reads it, he only finds a list to do with Pokemon skills. In this letter, Oak explains that these skills all relate to the Dex Holders, with Red being the fighter, a battle specialist, Blue being a trainer as he's an expert at training Pokemon, Yellow being a healer for obvious reasons, Crystal being the catcher, Green being the evolver, and Silver being the exchanger. And that's where the letter ends, which is of course useless for Gold, as it doesn't help him in any way, breaking down at the thought of there being nothing special about him, and that he should just leave the battle to the others. But as Gold lets his emotions get the better of him, the egg he's holding begins to grow and a pattern begins to form. Wilton then notices there's another letter, listing Gold's own ability, and the ability Gold possesses is Pokemon hatching, as a Pichu hatches from the egg. Wilton asks Gold how long he's had the egg for, but Gold reveals he's only had it for a minute when he was protecting it from the Masked Man. And everyone realizes the egg hatched so quickly because it was with Gold. The Pichu jumps on Gold's head and uses his powers to lift Gold into the portal, meaning it's time for another rematch. Back over at the stadium, everyone's feeling extremely tired, especially Misty, telling Suicune to pick a new partner to aid it in its battle, with the Pokemon picking Crystal, returning to her earring. Misty's just happy that the Pokemon she gives away are all able to reach their full potential, like the Gyarados she gave Red and the Omanyte she gave Yellow, coming to the acceptance that she's just a side character. So Crystal sets out with the legendary beast in tow to the Ilex Forest. In the wreckage area of the stands, the radio chief tries to find anyone to help out, and eventually comes across Bill and Daisy. The three of them find a fax machine which is printing letters from the viewers. As it turns out, everything at the League was still being broadcasted. The people of the region want to help out, but with the transport system being down, they can't send any of their Pokemon to help, which makes Bill realize what he has to do, heading to the control room and trying to connect it to the Pokemon transport system. Doing this allows Bill to finally figure out what caused the system to malfunction, being that someone was draining it of its power. This someone, of course, being Team Rocket. So now all they need is a way to power it. Unfortunately for them, Raikou's energy is still flowing through the magnet train, and with some simple redirection, they finally get it to work, fixing this transporter system. The radio director then broadcasts this to everyone across Kanto and Johto, and they send their Pokemon to Azalea Town Center. And we get to see tons of characters who we've met in the past, all preparing to send help. And just like that, the Pokemon burst out of their Pokeballs. Back in the forest, Red and the gang see the army of Pokemon flying their way, and the Pokemon all attack Ho-Oh and Lugia. And with them carrying the feelings of their trainers, it frees Ho-Oh and Lugia from the Masked Man's evil grasp. The two legends land back on the ground, thanking the Pokemon for their help, then making their leave. Red returns Blue and Green their starters, saying they should use them for the final battle like usual, as they run towards the shrine. However, the Masked Man's already at the shrine, capturing Will and forcing him to stay and help him. All the Dex holders arrive on the scene, as well as Gold's Typhlosion, who carries Pika and Choo Choo there as well. With the full team finally assembled, Silver leads the charge against the Masked Man, and Crystal notices that Gold's still missing. The Masked Man protects himself with ice, creating more ice dolls to fight the Dex holders' Pokemon, and they actually manage to defeat them all, restraining the Dex holders, which is all thanks to him having the GS Ball, which increases his strength. The shrine then finally opens up as Celebi appears. Pryce wastes no time immediately catching the Pokemon, commanding it to take him back in time. The ice dolls then begin to get colder, trying to freeze over everything. Crystal's worried for Gold, but Pryce reveals when they went through the portal they were in a crack of time, and the two fought each other there. And during their battle, Gold managed to nearly blind Pryce with Flash. Entei frees Silver and Crystal with its flames, and Pryce reveals that Gold was an annoying foe, but now he's trapped in his ice walls in the crack of time, escaping into the shrine. Gold tells his friends that he can't escape, and Silver tries to help him, but inside the shrine, time is completely twisted, so they can't simply just enter. If they want to be able to move around like Pryce, they'll need the feathers from Ho-Oh and Lugia to make this possible. Which explains why when Yellow was absorbed into that rock, it was actually a crack in time where the beast fought against Pryce in the past. And Gold puts 2 and 2 together that all they have to do is get the 2 feathers off Yellow's hat so they can free him. The feathers are stuck to Yellow's hat, but she doesn't want to remove it since it will reveal that she's a girl to Red. But since this is an end of the world situation, she has no choice, revealing her secret to Red and the Johto trio, which is a bit awkward, but at least now Gold's free. Gold, Crystal and Silver all pair up with the legendary beast and follow Pryce into the shrine. Inside, they see the memories of their journeys, but not only theirs but Pryce's as well, showing his oh so tragic backstory, where his 2 Lapras got into an unfortunate accident, leaving him with only their baby. Present Pryce then appears, confirming his goals to go back in time and save his 2 Laprases, which is really not worth all the evil he's committed, which the gang point out, enraging him and knocking away their feathers. Pryce then says that he has to be honest, he lied when he said that Pokemon were tools. Instead, the tools were all the people he used to achieve his goals. Back outside the forest, everything's starting to freeze, and not even Charizard and Typhlosion's flames can melt the ice, since he keeps regenerating. Blue realizes that only Entei's flames can melt this ice, and luckily there's still some flames left over. Unfortunately, this works out well, as Red refilled Blastoise's water cannons with the water at the hot springs, which, as we learned before, contains flammable gas, so they spread Entei's flames and free themselves of the ice. Inside the shrine, Gold and Silver see the moment they first met, and Gold apologizes to his now friend for accusing him, saying he doesn't think he's going to be making it out of here. Gold reaches out for the feathers, saying he only fights for himself, but in doing so, his actions end up helping others too. Telling both Crystal and Silver he's had fun in the short time he spent with them, giving them both the feathers and jumping further into time after Pryce. Inside the time stream, Gold has his Pichu, which because of his ability has extremely high potential, and even though they've only known each other for a short time, their bond is as strong as diamond, attacking Pryce with a move he came up with himself, known as Super Rising Thunder, and the move does crazy damage due to Pichu being charged by Raikou's electricity. All the other Dex holders also help out, with the traditional send energy through an object, in this case being Gold's Q-Stick, which he throws at Pryce, destroying his ice body and most importantly breaking the GS Ball. But without the feathers, Gold and Pryce begin to get lost in time, and as they do, Pryce's Lapras leaves his Pokeball, allowing it to reunite with its parents. Pryce then hears a song created for him by his old childhood friends, And it's also the song Gold was listening to on the radio back in the first chapter. Back then, Pryce's heart was too cold to accept his friend's help, but now that he's truly lost, the song connects with him, allowing him to finally accept defeat. Pryce thanks Celebi for using its powers to help him, asking the Pokemon to at least save Gold since he still has a life ahead of him, before allowing himself to finally get absorbed into the time stream. Crystal, Silver, the legendary beast and Pichu all get shot out of the shrine, and the others help him out. Pichu reunites with its parents and Yellow names the Pokemon Pichu, since it didn't have an official name yet. Although this is nice and all, the Pokemon's trainer has been lost to time. This sad news has to be interrupted though, as Blue isn't just gonna let Silver have a sob story without getting punished for his crimes. Everyone tries to protest this, but Silver says it's fine, since he's finally completed his revenge, so he's ready to receive any punishment against him. But someone points out that Blue should get his facts correct first, as the wanted poster clearly shows that Silver isn't the culprit. This someone, of course, being Gold. He's a bit annoyed that everyone thought he was done for already, but that doesn't matter now. The rest of his team then come to meet him, and Green notices that Gold's Sunkern evolved into Sunflora after being near the rocks in the area, which have similar properties to Sunstones. And Gold does something that would certainly get him cancelled today. From afar, Karen and Will have nowhere to have their fun, but Bruno and Koga offer them to join their group, which they accept, creating the Johto Elite Four. Back over at the stadium, Misty calls Erica to say everything's going well, but Red answers instead since he was borrowing Erica's Pokegear. Yellow gets curious at this, and if it wasn't obvious enough, there's a very evident love triangle here, which Green teases them about. Gold decides to take the golden opportunity to call his mum and say he's going to be trading with Red and won't be coming home for a while, grabbing the champion and running for the hills. The two cycle and scooter away, and Gold asks Red to teach him the skills necessary for defeating his rival Silver. So Red suggests Mount Silver, since there's tons of strong Pokemon there, and the two ride off into the sunset. So now let's wrap everything up. Because of the interference, the Pokemon League had to be cancelled, but for the Gym Leader tournament, it ended with Kanto's victory as Claire lost to Blaine. After the new ruling of getting 8 badges to skip the preliminaries, gyms have been busier than ever with people trying to get badges. The legendary beasts, Ho-Oh and Lugia, are now all free and once again are legendaries. The Rainbow Wing and Silver Wings have disappeared, and the Ilex Forest Shrine will probably never open again. And like usual, when one story ends, another begins, as Professor Oak has to go to Goldenrod City for his radio show, asking his new assistant Crystal to wake him up next time. Crystal reports that she managed to complete the Pokedex, and even though she couldn't capture the legends, she managed to get some info on them. But Oak can't bear to tell her about all the new Pokemon that are being discovered. Once at the station, Oak meets with a trainer who wants to get a Pokedex, and he asks them to tell them more about themselves, thus bringing the journey in the Johto region to an end. Next time, we've got a short 2-chapter story covering what happened with Gold and Silver on Mount Silver, but after that, we'll be heading to the Hoenn region and covering that story. So like usual, make sure to like and subscribe for more Pokemon Adventures Explained videos, as well as anything else to do with the manga. And let me know in the comment section down below which of the 3 arcs I've covered is your favourite, and which one of the main characters is your favourite as well. And also, thank you to everyone who was waiting patiently for this part to come out. I know it took a while, but I'm glad it's over with. So with all that said and done, I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.